with Logan Howlett for the City of Cockburn and the Cockburn Wetlands Centre. My name is Nandi Chinna, and I'd like to thank you, Logan, for agreeing to be interviewed today. Before we commence the interview, can you confirm you've read the informed consent and agreed to the interview conditions?
Yes, I have read that. Thank you, Nanda. Yes.
So, Logan Howlett is a former Northlake resident and co-founder of the Cockburn Wetlands Centre. Logan was a councillor on Cockburn Council. He went on to become the Mayor of Cockburn, which he currently still is, and is still intimately involved in the work of the Wetlands Centre. Logan, can we begin with you giving your full name, date of birth, and where you were born?
Logan Kenneth Howlett, born on the 15th of December 1952 at the King Edward Memorial Hospital for Women. I'm very proud of that.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what were some of the influences on you as a child?
Well, I was born, I grew up in the Osborne Park area, North Perth, Leederville, Mount Hawthorn area. Went to the local Osborne Park Primary School and then to the Mount Hawthorn Primary School and then Chewett Hill Senior High School, which again was a good sound part of my education. I loved growing up in the area. We were surrounded at that time with market gardens, which had a strong influence on my life going forward, particularly as I got to understand and know that the people who were operating the market gardens in Osborne Park actually were related to those who were running market gardens down in Spearwood, Hamilton Hill area, and also in the Swan Valley. So over the years, developed an amazing level of friendships with people in those particular areas, not really initially knowing that I would come to meet their brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, etc. And quite an amazing journey. And I just loved living in that area. We had horse stables. Life was very simple. We didn't have a lot of money at all in our family, so we often scraped through, but we relied on going over to the market gardens to get our vegetables and fruit every weekend. So important part of the life. I worked from a young age, 8 years of age. So good. I worked from a young age, about 8 years of age, where I was in a fruit and vegetable shop in Leederville, and I arrived there at 6 a.m, dropped off by my parents, and I went on to clean the glass front windows of the shop itself, make sure the pathway was outside, was clean. Went inside, polished up all the apples and oranges and all the fruit for display in the window, and then went out the back just as the shop was about to open to start to put potatoes into 1 pound and 2 pound paper bags and roll them over and then stack them ready for the customers coming in. I worked for an Italian husband and wife, who I thought were quite aged at the time. They were probably only about 40 years of age. But I got on really well there, and I made and built up their business over the years, so much so that they were probably getting around 4 times the turnover that they had originally started with, because I said to the people, the customers, look, leave your list of what you want. When you come in next Saturday, I will have everything packed in pine cases, wooden cases, and I'll take them out to your car. And that way I could actually increase business without any additional staffing requirements. And they got to really love the service I was offering. And while I was getting 50 or 5 shillings at that time, they used to always give me anywhere between 1 shilling and 2 shillings as a tip to put in my pocket, and not to say anything to the boss inside. And I had my pockets bulging by the 1 p.m. closing time each Saturday morning. So I thought I learnt a lot about customer service at the time, and even for that young age of 8 years of age, I was eager to make sure that whatever people were asking for in way of service and product, they got it, and they got the best quality each and every time. And I went on to work for a few other people during my schooling, during the holidays. And eventually we went away up north to where my grandfather and one of my uncles was crayfishing. And I worked on the crayfishing boats for the 7 weeks of school holiday. I earned more in that 7 weeks as a 10-year-old than anyone generally in Perth was earning in a whole year. So that's how lucrative the business was, and how if you worked hard, and I worked sometimes for 3 different skippers on different boats, because deckies were very difficult to get, and as 10 years of age, 11 and 12, I was eager to earn money and to make sure that every opportunity was taken up. And so people used to say, oh, it's amazing. I used to jump off one boat onto another, sometimes 20 kilometres off the coast, and just keep going. And so very lucrative. But again, I learnt the art of working hard, saving your money, investing your money, but importantly, making friendships and ensuring that whatever you did to your best of your ability. And a lot of people stop and think today, and people complain about work, and I say, get on with it. And that's been my philosophy all through life, is just get on and do it. Stop procrastinating, holding meetings, doing this and doing that. It does even frustrate me to this day, where my wife Pat says, just bite your tongue and count to 10. It will happen. So yeah, exciting growing up in that area of Osborne Park, making great friendships, and as I said, not knowing that going forward that many of the people that I knew in that area and went to school with, played sport with, actually were members of families down here in the Spearwood Hamilton Hill area particularly, and also in the Swan Valley.
Mm. And do you think this work ethic came from your family? Were all your siblings like that?
No, not particularly. I just thought, because my father died when I was 16, and I was at high school, year 11, and I had to leave school immediately to fund the loan, or pay out the loan on our family home. And the only way I could do that was leaving school, because my mother was given a month to pay out the loan or forfeit our home. So the only thing I knew well was to go crayfishing. So that's what I did. And I worked really hard, and in 3 weeks I gathered the money, working on 4 different boats to get the money. I came down to Perth, and I went into the finance institution, put the money on the counter in a small Hessian bag in cash, and I said, count that and make sure that I get a receipt in the next 10 minutes, and don't ever bother my mother again. So tough times, but from that point forward, I just made sure that my mother was comfortable in the family home, and that she didn't need to worry about anything at all. And of course, leaving school just before the end of year 11, it meant that in later life, I had to go back and redo my education, for want of a better term. And I had that ethic of burning through my education, sometimes doing 8 subjects per semester, but with that steely commitment that I had to do it, and it had to be done, and it had to be done now. And at the same time, Pat was studying as well, so it was very good. We had 2 different levels of going through our education. Pat would study meticulously every night and ensure that projects and assignments, everything was all done and readily. And then she'd be saying to me, you realise that tomorrow you've got 3 exams? And I said, tomorrow? And she'd say, yes. And I'd sit back and think, oh, okay, which ones are they? So, and she said, there's your textbooks over there. You haven't looked at them all year. You better get on with it, because I was on several boards, interstate as well. And we were all playing sport. And so then I'd work all the way through the night, have a shower in the morning, have breakfast, and then go straight into do my exams, etc. Which I did always do very well. I had a very good retention of information. But importantly, I found my education was enhanced by actually working and studying at the same time, and being able to be in positions of authority to be able to apply what I was learning. I had some very good mentors at the time as well, and they've all since passed away, but they were very, very good to me, and saying to me, you're going to make mistakes in life, but again, what you need to do is get on with life. So again, that's been inbuilt philosophy that I've had. So, and it still remains today. There's always a fire in the belly to get things done.
And you do work very hard. You're everywhere all at once. So can you tell us a bit about your connection to this area where the Wetlands Centre is situated, this Beeliar Wetlands area?
Yes, when Pat and I first decided to move south of the river because of employment opportunities, we had a bit of a drive around, probably 2 weekends in a row, trying to suss out where we'd like to raise our family. And we came across this area here. We thought, oh, wow, this is amazing. We walked around. At that time, there was very few roads. Farrington Road wasn't here. Hope Road was a road, very narrow road, which went directly to Jandakot Airport. Most people don't know that. And so we looked around, we just saw this natural bushland setting, the wetlands, the beautiful lakes, and the just uniqueness of the area. So we thought this is where we want to raise our family. So we purchased the home, and that family home we built in North Lake, just on the doorstep of the Wetlands Centre. Has been very good to us and for our children, and of course with our grandchildren as well. So very proud of the area, but importantly be able to go on long walks with our children and with our grandchildren to explore the area, and just to see the fascination. Pat was always had trouble with directions, so our children used to delight with us walking in the bush, and we get to a particular point and they'd say to Mum, close your eyes. They'd turn around 3 or 4 times, open your eyes, and now where do we go from here? And still a bit of a family joke at the moment, even with our grandchildren. So Pat will always say turn left, but she'll indicate with her right hand, and I'm thinking, okay, I know this, turn right when she says turn left. So this was, it always has been and still is, an amazing part of the world for all of our family, and we just love coming to this particular area, going for long walks, and just exploring the opportunity that the Banksia woodlands and the wetlands, and more importantly, learning about the Aboriginal history of the area, sitting down and listening to many elders tell their stories, and in groups quite often, and we've become to understand and learn more about the Noongar culture and how they've survived for over 60,000 years. And we today have a lot of lessons to learn from those people. We really have destroyed the environment, and I often say in around 230 years, we've made a very negative impact on the environment, and we really need to listen more closely to the Noongar people and understand and learn from them about how to care for nature and for the environment and for Mother Earth itself.
Mm. Yeah. So how did the idea for the establishment of this Wetlands Centre come about?
Well, that's very interesting, because we're standing a group of 5 men on the side of Hope Road here, just sort of looking at an old rundown farm area. And we're saying we'd love to have an education centre here developed. And from that, we formed a committee. I was just elected to council at the time, and I put my hand up to be on a committee to examine the opportunities There was opportunities for federal funding, which arose a little bit later on, but we stood on that side of the road and we dreamt about what could be here once the land and the rubbish that was here, old derelict buildings and also farm equipment, what could be here. We spoke about it, then we sat down and started just sketching out, mapping out plans and ideas and thoughts. And then we decided that we'd put a agenda item to the council. Council adopted that, adopted one of three opportunities when federal funding became available. And we were fortunate to be, as they say, shovel ready at the time, which was so important. And we got a Guernsey in the funding. And from that, the centre became a very important part of this whole region itself, not just Cockburn, but an important learning centre. And over the years, it's developed and, of course, developed to what it is today. Pat and I were in Europe and UK for about 5 months holidaying, way back in the year 2000. And we came across a magnificent precinct in Scotland. We spent several days there examining what was there, a magnificent wetlands education centre. They had cameras and birds' nests out on the lake areas and the wetlands. And we just looked at that, and they had separate education rooms, much like we have achieved today. So we put together a presentation, which we gave to the board of the Wetlands Centre when we returned. We also presented one to the council, City of Cockburn, and just pushed that idea and kept on pushing it. It's taken 20 years to really realise the dream in more ways than one. But I say to people when we officially opened the precinct here, I said we can't stop here, we have to keep going because we've made one step, 2 steps, but there's more to be done. And we'll keep on pushing to ensure that this centre develops and grows as the community grows around it.
And so who were those 5 men that stood at the farm gate?
I've got to stop and think now. I think there was Philip Jennings, Rob Avard, who was an officer at the City of Cockburn. I think it could have been Rex Soler. Might have even been Tiny Small from the Scouts at the time as well. But we were, just, as I said, standing by the side of the road.
And how did you come to be there? Were you already...
We're thinking about an opportunity that would arise with this particular location and for education and awareness and growth of our community. So, we were standing there and occasionally a car would go past because in some respects it was, as I said, the only road into Jandakot Airport, and you'd have horses grazing just down on Horse Paddock Swamp, just down the road from here. But there was no fencing generally, so horses were wandering around. We had kangaroos jumping around everywhere, so it was a very different environment. So when you came out anywhere this way, you had to be mindful of the horses, kangaroos and other wildlife that were crossing the road, etc. And of course, the turtles, which were, sometimes you couldn't drive down the road. You had to park your car and walk out because there were so many on the road. It was, and again, going back the other way on Progress Drive, which is now Progress Drive, it was the same situation there as well. The turtles were there in the thousands when it was the breeding season. And I remember my son coming home and he just got his driver's licence and he said, "Dad, I've just stopped some guy down there with a big tractor mowing over the weeds, etc., because he didn't realise the number of turtles that were in amongst that high growth." So I pulled up, I tooted my horn and got him to stop, told him what was going on, and he apologised to me. My son said, I said, "Don't apologise to me, but just don't ever do this again." And people talk about situations today with the turtles and crossing the roads. We have signs out, we have flashing signs, we have lots of different indicators. But again, the numbers are very low compared to what, as I said, we were able to see in our early days down here in the thousands. And that's why we need to be more mindful of the environment itself. So yeah, we were surprised when our son came straight back home to tell us what had unfolded, and there was a lesson to be learnt, and we conveyed that information to the City of Cockburn at the time, and they took on the message as well. So that was way back in, goodness me, in the 80s. Yeah, in the 80s.
And so the five of you getting together to think about wetland education, was the Wetland Conservation Society already formed by then?
Yes, they were, yes.
As a result of Barrington Road?
Correct, yes, yeah. That was another interesting scenario because we just moved into our new home in North Lake, the family home, and we're in the garden out the front, or preparing the garden, etc. And my son came running over, he'd been cycling just down the road, and he said, Dad, he said, there's all these people down there. And he said, on bulldozers, we don't know what's going on. And so we walked down there and we saw those bulldozers just tearing through the bushland area, knocking trees down. And that was quite devastating to us because before we built our family home in North Lake, my wife had gone down to the council and said, there's a line on the map here that shows a road. And it's in grey. Is that proper road? And they said, don't worry, missus, that road will never go through because of the pristine environment. So my wife came home and we put a deposit on our block of land based on that information from the council and built our home, family home, and then all of that destruction occurred at that time. And of course Rex Salur, Philip Jennings and quite a number of others were intimately involved with that particular protest. And lots of things happened there. And of course, the raising of community awareness with the Conservation Council and people then coming together in a more formalised way to say these things should never happen again. And of course, we had a similar result with Row 8 and that destruction of the bushland areas. And again, symbolically, the two Norfolk Island pines that were planted in 1902 by Mr. Dixon on the occasion of his getting married and his wife coming out from England to be married, and planting those two trees. And then the Barnett government of the day cutting those trees down at about 5 metres high. And I was absolutely devastated. And still are every time I come past that particular roundabout area. And I've written a few stories about it and how it's impacted me personally and our family. And just knowing that we're having a ceremony shortly to plant 2 new trees there with the Dixon family, and who we're very close with as well. And that's a very important part of helping to partially restore part of our history and our understanding of what this area means to a lot of people.
So, you said that you stood here and thought this would be a good spot, and it was a farm, wasn't it?
Yes.
An old farm?
Old farm, yes.
Yeah. So then you applied for a grant to the Cockburn Council? Is that right?
The federal government at the time was making money available to local governments for shovel-ready projects, ones that were visible in the community. And because we had really put ourselves to the task of let's get something up and running, let's get some information on paper, the concept went to council, and one of 3 projects that were considered by council, and this one particularly was the one that was selected to receive that federal funding and to get on with the project itself, yeah.
So was that a substantial enough amount that you could build the first building?
Yes, it was. And the funding allowed us to do that with some support from the City of Cockburn as well. And as the building went up, and it was just completed, and we were at home on a weekend, and our son said, Dad, there's some smoke out. It looks like it's out near the Wetlands Centre. And I said, oh. So we drove straight out here and we stopped, and there was a fire raging in Beeliar Lake, and it was heading straight for the Wetlands Centre. the fire brigade arrived, and I always remember the officer in charge saying to his team, "Get out there with these flamethrowers," he says, "and burn everything." And I was, I was astounded at that direction, but of course he was in control, and he said, "I want everything burnt," and everything was burnt basically with what I call these big flamethrowers, and that prevented the centre from being probably destroyed by fire. So,
wow.
Yeah, quite an amazing scenario. But then we went on to obviously start to clear around the area here. And what a lot of people don't know is that we dug really, cleaned out, we moved machinery and equipment, old pieces out, bits are still buried in the ground, cleaned all that up, and mainly all by hand, really, shovels and whatever, and working weekends at night, etc., anytime we had spare.
And is that the Wetlands Conservation Society?
Yes, that's right, a group of people. And then we started planting. And of course, those plants had to be watered, and the only way to water them was by bucket. And of course, and we had to make sure that we watered them through 3 summers. And some of those summers at the time, you had 40 plus degrees. So I think a big group of us gathered out here almost every night of the week with buckets. And of course, we not only watered plants around here, we watered established trees and plants right down to Bibra Drive, which is a good 250, 300 metres. So we carry buckets of water down there and then come back again, back and forward. And we go to dark and we're getting bitten by mosquitoes and things like that. And then we became somewhat sophisticated. We purchased a couple of long hoses, which was better in one respect, but unfortunately, when you finished your watering, then you had to move 10 metres over there, but you had to take the hose all the way back to the centre and then run it again because of all the trees, whatever. So while it was good, it was created a few incidents there where we were quite frustrated. And then we thought about having hoses that we could connect and disconnect to make it easier. And then we applied for a Lottery West grant for $168,000, which enabled us to have a small vehicle with a tank on the back. And that became really the essence of us being able to go not only water around here, but water other areas around North Lake and South, around Bibra Lake, and some other plantings that we were doing, Lake Yangebup and other places as well. So we were really in our element at that time, thinking back that we carried, I don't know how many thousands of buckets of water to pour it out and then go back and then repeat it over hour after hour, day after day, all weekends, just to keep things established.
And were you on the council then, or were you working?
Yeah, I was on council at the time. Yes, I got onto council, first elected in May 1990. Elections were held in May of every third year. Yes, so again, very interesting times. But again, it allowed the whole area to be established, to be thriving. We had a lot of weeds and rubbish out the front that had to be moved as well. So we were working away with axes and shovels. In the end, we decided to approach council to come out with their dozers, and they cleared it all in one day, which would have taken us probably 6 months to do. So again, that reflects the front area there now, reflects a lot of work done by people, and of course over the years it's been enhanced with different seating arrangements and plantings, etc., etc. Yes.
And this group of passionate people, do you think they were all driven by the same force of just loving this area, wanting to protect it?
I think so, yeah. I think those people who I know to this day still have a very keen interest in what happens in this area, but in generally what happens with our environment as well, with climate change and all of that. So, yeah, we look back with fond memories and of all that friendships that were formed many, many years ago and are still very valid today. as they were then, and understanding and again sharing knowledge. And I know particularly through Philip Jennings, Pat and I have learnt so much, as so many other people have as well, with his knowledge, experience, and his willingness to share all of that. And of course, being a lecturer at Murdoch University, he's brought through thousands of people and developed their understanding and knowledge and just know-how. And of course, also having close connection with a lot of Aboriginal elders, that's made a big difference as well. So we again are still on this journey of learning, and to talk to them at any time at all, you're gaining knowledge. And of course, that's very important. And I thank so many of those Aboriginal elders, many who are not with us today, who made a significant contribution to this entire area here and to the understanding and learning of people in our community. Yeah.
So back then, in your mind, what was the purpose of the establishment of the centre in the beginning?
It was to provide a source of education to school students, to TAFE students, university students, an avenue for researchers to come in and contribute, and just to make it a centre of excellence. Having grown up north of the river, I was well aware of the Herdsman's Lake Centre there. Pat and I visited there quite often as well to look at what they were doing and how they're conducting their business activities, their areas of learning, etc., etc. And of course, the aim was always to be one step in front, to be better. And of course, Piney Lake Reserve as well there, the work that's been done through the City of Melville is very important as well. So again, these centres of learning, as I call them, are very important for all of us to understand and know about what's happening in our community. And of course, we've explored a lot of the other precincts. We did a lot of plantings north of the river, way up in Wanneroo and Joondalup as well. We're there one weekend with, I think, close to 500 school students. Some were as young as 5 or 6. And unbeknownst to us, they're planting a lot of these trees upside down. And it took us probably about 3 hours to do redo one whole area. And it was a lesson learned by everybody, including the little, what I call them, toddlers running around with their little gumboots on and hats and gloves and whatever. And under limited supervision, I said, what happened here? We couldn't work it out at first, and then we come to understand, yes, exactly what happened. And 3 hours later, we'd sorted it. We couldn't go until we got that fixed as well. So, yeah, we've been planting all over the area. Now, Pat and I were talking about this more recently. We think we've probably ourselves planted about 15,000 trees or understories in this whole area, including some parts north of the river as well. And of course, pulling of weeds was a huge task undertaken particularly by the Conservation Society and the Friends of the Wetlands Centre here. And I don't know, weekend after weekend, we were out in different areas, pulling weeds over the North Lake Reserve. So again, and then replanting. We did, when we were planting in the North Lake Reserve area, find a lot of artefacts, because around this area, around the lakes, there was a lot of early settlers who lived here, and they had very small, almost one-room shanties with corrugated iron, whatever was available. One had a blue tile roof, which was very prominent, and people often spoke about it. Anyway, when we were planting, we actually came across sections of blue tiles from that particular little shack, as I call it. So we were very pleased about that. But the more you dug, the more you found. So we found a lot of artefacts there to do with those early settlers. There was also known that some of the soldiers returning from the war came out to live here because they had shell shock. They couldn't be in any environment where there was noise. And of course, this area was pristine. It was very quiet. Before Farrington Road came through, you could stand anywhere here and just close your eyes and absorb the noise, the breeze, feel the breeze in your face, hear the birds, etc., etc. So several lived out here and died out here. and found their bodies were found in their little rudimentary shacks, etc. Again, but it's an important area for Chinese market gardeners as well. Early part of the 1900s, where they worked the soil here, delivered produce to their markets, and relied on the water in the lakes to feed their crops, etc. Yeah.
It sounds like it's been through a whole cycle from Noongar times to gardening and farming, and now back to revegetation.
Yes, and another interesting aspect was several years ago, there was talk about the Roe Highway coming through, and a lot of research being done, and in talking to people, and we came across the fact that there was an Australian Women's Army camp on Hope Road here. And of course, people vehemently denied there was ever any army camp here, let alone a women's army camp. Anyway, we've been exploring in the bushland, and we've come across these concrete structures which we had no idea what they were. But then we started doing further research, and we found out they were shower blocks. And then we started interviewing people, and knowing that that was the exact location for the Australian Women's Army camp. Against all odds, people, and of course the state government of the day didn't take that on board at all. We also knew that where Adventure World is today, before that was all excavated, the yellow sand taken out of there, that on top of the hill there was also Searchlights, another camp there, army camp there, which operated because it was a high level, one of the highest levels in Cockburn. Searchlights were installed there as well. So again, all this unfolding history has become an important part of what Cockburn is, and the more we learn about it. Pat and I are very interested in history. We're members of the Cockburn Historical Society, also the Royal WA Historical Society. So again, combining our passions for the environment with history, we've actually pulled together a lot of information, a lot of stories, and I'm still writing up what I call the snippets of Cockburn, which portray interviews I've had with people. Every time I get a snippet of information, I'll punch it into my computer. If there's photographs to go with it, I'll put those together. So I think I've got about close to 11,000 pages now of information about Cockburn history, and I don't know how many thousands of photographs, which really are very special.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very special.
So are you going to put this together?
Oh, well, I've got 4 books on the run, and they're all in different stages, so I can get pretty excited sometimes when I get a snippet of information. I could sit down, and it could be start at 10 o'clock at night, it could be 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm still punching away with information and doing research, and then I realise, it's 3 in the morning, I better go to bed. It does drive you. Of course, we've done a lot of family tree research. Pat and I, we've been to England, and we estimate it's been about 15 months in total of family tree research that we've done together in England and Scotland. And it does sort of capture you and embrace you and hold you, and you get trapped into that cycle, which it's always exciting. And we're in Derbyshire one time doing some research, and in the library there was twin brothers. They were 95 years of age, and they were there on computers doing their family tree research, and they had arguments all day and every day, and Pat and I used to often stop and just pretend we were researching, and we'd be listening to them as they argued about a particular point in history. And of course, as we know, when you interview people, talk to people about a certain aspect of history, people have got all different understandings and appreciations, and complete opposite poles completely. And somewhere in between, there's the truth of history. So I found that in most of my research I've been doing on different aspects of Cockburn, that you get so many amazing stories from people. Yes.
So what are some of the achievements of the centre that you're most proud of?
The fact that it's reached this stage now with this new precinct here, combined with what was formerly Native Ark as well, the Scouts, and the fact that the precincts come together as one. We've got these magnificent modern facilities, and the opportunity to share that knowledge and experience with children of all ages, and of course students, right through from primary, secondary, right through to TAFE and university, researchers, and it's open to the community on a regular basis. So I think that's the beauty of this. It's what I think the group of 5 of us first thought about many years ago, and it's really delivered over time what we need. But of course, I said there's still more to be done, still more to be done. And we're learning more about our Aboriginal history, and that has to be an important element of what we share here and learn and understand about. The more of that, the better, because I've become more enriched with what I know now, but I know that I've only sort of touched around the edges really with the amount of knowledge of the Aboriginal people here and what they did. And importantly, when the City of Cockburn and other local governments advertise these walks with the Aboriginal elders, you've got to be quick, because normally if it's posted, it's booked out in an hour or even less. So that shows you the importance of what's happening. I'm just looking outside here now as we're talking and seeing young children walking around, exploring, and obviously involved with different programs being run at the centre. And every time I see children, I think, well, at this location, I think it's good. They're here to learn and understand and appreciate. And of course, they'll be our leaders both in community, in government of the future. Yes.
And so you're still involved how are you still involved now with the centre?
With the centre, money, not so much with the planting days. Occasionally we'll come out there, but with age now, with sporting injuries, etc., knees and ankles and all that creates a bit of a problem. But we still try to get to some planting days, get to different programs and activities that have been run at the centre here, keeping in touch, and of course being on the council itself, we're working closely obviously with the Wetlands Centre Cockburn to ensure, and this entire precinct, that it thrives and that we can make a difference to not only the local community but the wider community in Australia.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Logan. It's very inspiring.
Yes, I get very emotional about so many things in life, and I've had a wonderful opportunity throughout my life to contribute and to learn and understand and to give back. And then Pat and I always say, people saying, oh, what are you doing this for? We're saying we're giving back to community because we are part of community, and we're encouraged to give back as much as possible. And I know with our children and our grandchildren, it's giving back. We have that message about giving back, and we want people to, wherever possible, to share their learning experiences, good and bad, because out of all of that, we are a better community, and our community can thrive. So yeah, we're just passionate and love everything that we're able to do at this time.
I think it's remarkable that, you all 5 of you people that were here that day looking into the paddock were all living around here.
Yes.
And you're just concerned about not just your house and garden, but what was all around you. And it's a remarkable achievement. I'm getting emotional too. It's a remarkable achievement to have had that vision that day looking into the old horse paddock and cow paddock.
Yes.
To what we have today, which is enriching the lives of thousands of people.
That's right, yes.
And yes, so many over the years. So thank you so much for...
Oh, thank you, Nandi. It's been a real honour to be interviewed and to share some of my experiences and a journey through life. And we'll keep on keeping on. Thank you so much.